Hi everyone, this week we were talking about transformational leadership, which I think is an important topic. It's the best way, I think, to empower the people that you work with, which really is what leads to lasting change. And I think we can all easily come up with more than a handful of things that we'd like to change in healthcare. Why is transformational leadership in the lens of complexity leadership important? So, on page 85, Crowell explicitly states the benefits from transformational leadership, including the ability to generate collective purpose, as well as allowing leaders and followers to raise one another to higher levels of motivation and morality. Then they go on page 87 to talk about the 4 components of transformational leadership, which are all beneficial to the CNL. The 4 components are idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individualized consideration. I think that the most useful concept with transformational leadership is that the results are a second order change, which is defined on page 85 in our book, Crowell, that a second order change results in a change of the system itself. And so when we're talking about complexity leadership, it helps to know that the healthcare system is a complex system, and that because the system is complex, if we want there to be a change in the system and not and a sustained one, that we have to put it forth not from the top up, because we know that those changes are usually not as effective as one that's manifested from within. And then also that transformational leadership is the best way to change the system and to keep it sustainable. So I think that's kind of the highlight of those things. And when we talk about the roles of the CNL and how the behaviors of a transformational leader would benefit the CNL, basically what I did was I took the list of behaviors on page 87, and then I made a list of the roles of the CNL, and I basically read through the behaviors and I thought, which of these behaviors best fits the roles of the individual roles of the CNL? So when we're talking about from a clinician perspective, we know that a transformational leader questions assumptions and that they reframe problems. So that's important as a clinician, because we're not looking always for the simple answers. So if a patient is coming to us and they say, oh, I have chest pain, for example, and well, they had jalapeno pizza for dinner last night. Okay, well, they probably have heartburn. Right, but we're still going to do an EKG. We're going to look at it from all angles. How can we treat this person so that we are taking care of them from all angles? Then, as an outcome manager, we have to be willing to take risks, and we need to encourage new approaches to be able to create outcomes that are patient-centered and that best fit the patient's community. And so these traits of the transformational leader help to facilitate that. Then we're talking about a client advocate. Also reframing problems. I think that's important for so many things, but also optimism, enthusiasm, because that client is gonna, if you're gonna advocate for the client, you have to be optimistic, because if you are not in that patient's corner and you're not encouraging them to be able to take this stand for themselves or to be able to take on new responsibilities for themselves, then they're not going to have the confidence to make that fit. The clinical nurse leader is an educator. We need to have a compelling mission so that people want to listen to what we're educating them about. We have to have creativity and innovation, because that's the best way to teach people. If we're creative about it, if it's if we're droning on, or it's the 17th in-service paper that they pass around to sign, you're not going to have that same engagement as you would if you're having a creative presentation. And then we also have to focus on creating challenges that our followers want to meet. And I think as an educator, that's important, because there's all kinds of ways that we can encourage people to be challenged to learn the new information, and how can we enhance that engagement. Then as far as an info manager go, you need someone who truly listens and someone who can delegate effectively, because there's so much information. We need to make sure that it's getting to the right people at the right time, and that isn't always possible by the CNL. So the CNL needs to make sure that when you delegate things, that it's being done correctly and being done well. Then with the systems analyst and risk anticipator, we're going to stimulate efforts and we're going to question assumptions to be able to get ahead of those situations that are coming. It's so important to take what is happening in the healthcare system now, at all levels, and how it's going to affect the microsystem, and how can we start to facilitate those changes before they come, to make our staff feel more comfortable with them as they're happening. Then being a team manager, team spirit was a behavior that Cole mentioned. That's an obvious choice there, as well as coach, mentor, teacher. These are things that if we are the manager of the team, we have to be willing to rah them. The optimism and enthusiasm also fits here. It needs to be a situation where people are willing to work for that group, and that the purpose of the group encourages them, that it's something that they can be motivated by. Then we talk about, as a member of the profession, the transformational leader has high moral and ethical standards, and they have a drive to do the right thing, and those are right along with the code of ethics that we have with the ANA. And then as far as a lifelong learner, commitment to meeting goals, professional goals, educational goals. What can we do to meet those, to continue our growth as nurses? And then also to encourage new approaches. And I think that's, trying a class you've never tried before, doing it in a different style. Is it, is it a webinar? Is it a seminar? Is it, meetings with people outside of your system that you're not familiar with? And all of those things can be so important to your growth, and then essentially to the welfare of your patients, just by having this information that you wouldn't have otherwise had. And so I think all of these behaviors really fit intricately. That's something that we talk about, right? The tight fit between the clinical nurse leader into the microsystem, to make sure that things are running smoothly. And I think that the transformational leadership behaviors fit into the role of the CNL, to benefit not just the profession of CNL and the CNL, him or herself, but also to benefit the microsystem. And then I also wanted to talk about, I frequently listen to Becker's Healthcare Clinical Leadership podcast, and I was kind of in and out of sleep one day this week, and heard Dr. Nancy Schweitzer, who is a cardiologist, but she's also a research physician scientist, and she was on the podcast and was talking at about 2 minutes, and it was like 2:12 is when this quote starts, but she says how important it is for healthcare to have scientists who work across boundaries and who collaborate with others with extremely different expertise. And I think that really wraps up what we're talking about with the CNL as part of the interdisciplinary team and as the team manager, and how important that is to other disciplines. So here's someone who is a doctor emphasizing the need for something that a CNL provides and how perfectly fit we are for the needs of the healthcare environment today. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys all had a good week. And we're almost at the end. We're so close. Bye, everyone.